Well, hey there, and welcome back to Online Financial Foundations. In lesson number 4, we're going to talk about setting up your bank accounts. In this lesson, you will learn why you should have a separate bank account for your business, how many bank accounts you should have, how to set up your bank account, and I'm going to share with you some common questions I get about business bank accounts. So first and foremost, let's talk about why it's so important to keep the money stuff separate. I'm going to drop another truth bomb on you. You and your business are not the same person. Look, the mistake that a lot of business owners make, especially at the beginning, is they want to keep things simple. So they mix business and personal by putting everything into their personal business bank account. I'm sorry, not bank account, not business bank account, personal bank account. But here's the thing, if your business is held in an LLC or a corporation, you must have a separate bank account. Like you're literally legally required to have a separate bank account. But even if you're a sole proprietor, having a separate bank account for your business is the smart way to go. And I'm going to talk about a few of the reasons why. And I'm just going to tell you, one of my cringeable moments is when people tell me that they are commingling funds. Commingling is one of those fancy words we like to use, which basically means putting everything into the same account. This is such a bad idea for a few reasons. So let's talk about why it's so important to have separate bank accounts for your business and your personal funds. First of all, it makes you look legit. I know we don't write a lot of checks in our business or whatnot, but if I have to pay someone, I want to know that I'm paying their business account, not just cutting them a check personally. I don't know about you, but if somebody doesn't have a bank account set up for their business, it makes me question whether or not they're even really a business, whether or not they're even really serious. Remember back to when we talked about the money mindset shift, this is one of those things that you need to do to act like a real business. I also want to mention that it makes you look legit in the eyes of the IRS. So remember, again, we talked about being a business versus being a hobby. Well, the IRS has this funny rule where if you don't make money in your business for a few years, they may come in and say, it kind of seems like you've got a hobby and not a business. And the consequence of that is they're going to disallow all of the deductions you took for expenses in those years, which is probably going to result in a tax bill for you. So what we want to do is show the IRS, no, we are a real business. And a good way to do that is having a separate bank account for the business. Now, it's not foolproof. It doesn't on its own solve the problem, but it's a really important step to show them, no, I'm treating this like a real business. This is a real business. And substantiating to them that it is so that they will respect it as such. Another reason why you should keep your business and personal funds separate is because it makes it easier to track business numbers. I've had several clients come to me with spreadsheets from their personal bank accounts, and they literally have to go through and pull out all the business transactions and separate out all the personal. And it takes a lot of time. That is time you do not need to spend. So if you keep everything separate in one business bank account, it's going to make it a lot easier to see exactly what you've spent, exactly what you've made, and exactly where your business cash is at. Another reason to keep your business and personal funds separate is because it creates a clear audit trail. I hate to make everything about the IRS, but sometimes it is. So look, if they or another taxing authority comes in and decides to audit you, one of the things they may ask for are your bank statements. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't really want to show them my personal bank statements. I don't really want them to see what I spend my money on personally. But if you put your business transactions in your personal account, that's what you're going to have to do. Instead, if you have a business bank account, all you have to show them are your business bank account statements, assuming they're only auditing the business portion of your return. That's what I want to show them. So by keeping it separate, you're making a clear audit trail. You're saying, look, all the money from the business went into this account. All the expenses came out of this account. This is 100% business. There's none of the business stuff is in my personal account. Just look at this. So instead of the mistake that I mentioned before of commingling everything, instead, I want you to open a separate business bank account in the name of your business. We're going to use that new EIN we just got. That's why we got it. And I want you to do this from the very beginning, or at least from as early as you can. So basically, I don't want you to wait till you make more money, till you go full time, or any of those BS excuses. I want you to get that separate business bank account today. Now, a question I get a lot is, well, how many bank accounts do I actually need? And my answer is actually a little bit different depending on where you're at in the stage of your business. If you're just starting out, I just want you to get one. And the reason is because even though I actually want you to have more, I don't want this to be one of those things that overwhelms you at first. And I know a lot of folks who will go and they'll open up a bunch of bank accounts. Maybe they're following Profit First, or they've got some other methodology. So they get all these bank accounts, and it's just too much at the beginning. So my advice to you is to keep it simple. Just start with one, we can build from there. Once you start making money, then you can consider adding additional accounts. And I would even add, once you start getting your systems in order to where you've got everything kind of working well, then you can consider adding additional accounts. Well, what are those additional accounts that I might recommend you add? One would be a tax savings account. This is where you can put money, as you make it, where you can put money that you're setting aside to pay quarterly tax payments. We're going to talk about those in an upcoming lesson. I also would recommend having an emergency savings account. Now, you don't have to do this, but it's nice to have in your business. That way, if you can't work all of a sudden or it's a slower month, you've got backup funds to pay your monthly expenses so that the business stays afloat. And then the last option, and this one really is kind of an optional one, it depends on your systems and your workflow, is you could consider having an owner's pay account. So I do have some clients who every time they make a sale or they take on a new client, they'll put a certain percentage of their money into a separate owner's pay account. And then, twice a month or whatever it is, they'll pay themselves out a certain amount of money. I don't personally do that in my business. I just pay myself directly from my business bank account, but it's entirely up to you and whatever system works for you. But at a minimum, I would do that tax savings account first, then I would probably do that emergency savings. And then if you want, you can do the owner's pay. Now, I do want to make a note here. Many banks, especially the online banks, offer what they call envelopes or reserves. So these aren't actually separate accounts, but they do allow you to separate your funds for certain purposes. So for example, Novo Bank, which is a bank I recommend and I'll talk about in a second, they do what they call reserves. So I have a reserve account set up with Novo. It's not a separate account. It's within my primary business bank account, but it's sort of like siphoned off. And so I put my tax savings in there. The nice thing about that is it's siphoned off. So when I look at my balance, I can kind of see the two numbers separately, what's in my operating account versus what's in my tax savings reserve. But if anything ever happened and I needed to pull that cash back quickly, I can do it like instantaneously because it's already within my account. So just something to keep in mind. And when I'm talking about opening up additional accounts, if you work with a bank that uses envelopes or reserves, then you can substitute the word accounts for envelopes or accounts for reserves. Same thing, okay? So once you've decided, okay, great, I'm ready, I'm gonna set up my bank account, how do you actually do it? Well, I recommend that you look for a bank that caters to small business owners or even online business owners, and one that offers low fees or no fees, ideally, and one that has good integration options. And what I mean by integration options is, does it sync up with your invoicing system? Does it sync up with your accounting system? Does it sync up with any of your other sales channels that you use and that you would want to talk to each other? So just check that out as well. Most banks nowadays do this, but I will tell you some of the smaller, more local banks don't always have this functionality. And I'm a huge fan of shopping local, but this is the one place where I get a little nervous because I want my systems to be able to talk to each other. Now, under no circumstances are you to open up a personal bank account for your business. I see this a lot, especially with my folks who are just starting out and who are sole proprietors, is they will go to whatever their bank is and they will open up another personal checking account and they'll just say, well, this is my business account. But here's the problem with that. A lot of banks actually have it written into their terms that you cannot use personal accounts for business purposes. And so you've got to be really careful because if they catch you, they could shut your account down. And I will tell you, up until a few months ago, I always gave this warning, but I never really knew if this was really happening, like if banks were really going after people for this, even though they definitely could, until it happened to one of my clients. And she was given, I believe it was 30 days to get all of her money out because they were shutting her account down. And she no longer is allowed to have a relationship with that bank because she violated their terms. So it happens. And so please, please, please open up a business bank account, not a personal one for your business. Now, in order to open up your bank account, you're going to need that EIN and your business's organizing documents if applicable. So if you're an LLC or a corporation, you'll need those documents. And I also just want to note here that this is why we got that EIN, because absent that EIN, you would open up this bank account in your using your social security number. And again, I like that separation between my personal and my business. So having that EIN allows you to open up the bank account in the number of the business, the EIN. Now, I do just want to also mention there that you may get thrown off when you go to apply. You may notice that they still ask you for your personal EIN. That's okay. It does not mean that that is the number that's on your account. They're asking that for identification and verification purposes. Okay, so I do recommend a couple of banks if you're looking for some options. Both of these are online banks. They cater to online and small business owners, and I highly recommend each of them. The first is Novo. Full disclosure, I am an affiliate for Novo, so if you want to sign up for them, you can go to megkwheeler.com/Novo. But I really like them because they really do cater to small business owners. I've been really impressed with the features that they continue to roll out as they listen to what we need. So they actually offer invoicing. They offer the envelopes system I talked about, where you can kind of create separate sort of siphoned off sections for your money for tax savings or emergency savings or whatnot. And they integrate really well with Stripe and Shopify and what are some of the other ones? I'm blanking on some of the other sales platforms, but they have a ton of integrations, and they're constantly bringing up more. So I really like them. Bluevine's another great option. This is another option I'll tell the folks if they, for whatever reason, don't want to go with Novo. Similar to Novo, I don't think they're as built out or as robust, but a good option as well. And neither one of these, at least as of the time of this recording, neither one of these charges fees for having the bank account. So again, I know folks kind of get stuck on, well, I've been with Chase forever or whatever. I highly recommend getting a bank account that is built for small business owners and that doesn't charge you fees, and they exist. So why pay for something when you don't have to, and it will be just as good? Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to just address some questions that I often get about bank accounts. These are what I call the but questions, because it's always when I'm talking to someone and they're like, this sounds great, but. So here are some of the buts that I get. Question: what if I'm just a sole proprietor, or this is just a side hustle for me? And my answer is, I don't care. I still think you should have a separate bank account for all of the reasons that I've already walked through. I cannot stress this enough, that it is critical for that clear audit trail. It's critical to be able to track the numbers in your business. It's critical to treat your business like a real business. But I will also say this: you may be a side hustle now, but a year from now, you might not be. Treat your business like the business you want it to be, like the business you're growing. Get that bank account today. Another question I get is, well, isn't it just cheaper and easier to use my personal account? And my answer is no, it's not. I actually believe that it's more expensive to use your personal account. And here's why. It costs a lot of time sorting through those transactions every tax season, if not earlier, to figure out what's business and what's personal. And by the way, you're also possibly costing yourself money if you're missing out on deductions that maybe you don't catch when you're doing that sorting process, or if you get audited and the IRS questions some of those deductions because they're sitting in your personal account. So I actually think it costs you more money to not have a separate bank account. And then another question I get is, okay, but how do I pay my bills then? How do I pay myself? And usually this is because the person has been putting all of their money into their personal account and then paying their bills out of there. And my answer is, paying yourself is actually pretty easy, unless you're an S corporation or a C corporation, but that's a separate issue. all you have to do is transfer the money from your business bank account to your personal bank account. And that's all the more reason why I like banks like Novo, like Bluevine, because that transfer process is fairly quick with those folks. So I can usually have that money in my personal account within 24 to 48 hours. Another question I get is I'm just starting out and I haven't made much money or any money in my business. I'm paying for most of my business expenses with my personal funds. So isn't it easier to keep everything together? And my answer is maybe, but no. Because here's why. You're potentially missing out on deductions by keeping everything personal. Because again, it's harder to track when it's in our personal world, right? We want to get it into that business bank account so that it gets into our business accounting system. We haven't talked about that yet, but we will. So that's the first thing I don't like about that solution, is that you're potentially missing out on those deductions. But the second thing is, I think you're not setting yourself up for success down the road, because maybe that works right now, but I'd rather have you get legit in your business now before things get busy, before you get overwhelmed with sales and clients, so that you're ready when you do get there. So I'm going to drop just one more truth bomb before we wrap this up. You're not saving yourself time or money by mixing your business and personal funds. In fact, I think you're doing the opposite. I think you're costing yourself time and money by mixing your business and personal funds. So I want you to get that separate business bank account opened today. Now, a short little PSA before we go. I wouldn't be able to survive if I didn't just say this one more time. Things that make me cringe, please do not do these. Do not keep your business funds and personal funds in the same bank account. Do not use a personal bank account for your business, and do not choose a bank that charges you monthly fees, because you don't have to. That last one's less of a absolute deal breaker, but you really don't have to. There are some great banks out there that are free, so I highly recommend you use those. Okay, your action item for this lesson is to choose a bank and open up your very first business bank account. So in this lesson, you learned why you should have a separate bank account for your business, how many bank accounts you need, and how to open your business bank account. In the next lesson, you are going to learn the best way to start bringing in the money.